what you can do is basically when, I guess this video didn't autoplay. When you click New Issue, have this template file auto-generated within the file itself, and then you provide the interview right there. Again, don't be like me and type this, because that's not good. But the point is to solicit that additional information. I've seen lots of people in our repo just not even fill this all out. Okay, so you're not like forcing people to do it, but it's still kind of like we have gotten really good, better issues from it. And the same thing can be done with pull requests as well. So there's a couple great resources out there. There's a GitHub article that explains how these work and how to implement them. It's basically a .issue_template.md file. You put that in a .github directory within the root of your repo, I believe that is, and then .pullRequest.md, and then GitHub will automatically see that. And then there's some great templates here as well. Awesome GitHub issues and PR templates. That's a good repo to check out and fork. And as well as this issue and pull request template generator. This one's actually really fun because it takes you on a what's called a make your own adventure kind of article. And I don't know why he did this, but let's see if I can just click on this real quick. Yeah, so if I click this, open source templates, the curious case of the issue and pull request templates, and then I click in it, and then chapter 1, the overflowing mailboxes. So basically it talks about, and then, okay, to open issues box, turn to, let's see, issue box. Then you kind of read some more stuff. I'm like, I don't get why he did this. But yeah, but eventually at the end, if you make it through your adventure, then your journey feels complete. You feel ready to download your issue template. Exactly. So here's kind of like, I think I took ours from here with some tweaks, but I like this steps to reproduce. That, man, that's been so useful for me. Is just install WordPress, install this plugin, go here and click on it. Button doesn't work. It's, you know, it's great. It takes the guesswork out of it. Here's the star embed that I was talking about. It's kind of lame. Stylishly late. All right, so finally, some time-saving tools. I gave you one tool, I think, so far, which was the autocomplete. That one's pretty sweet, but I've got better ones for you. ZenHub. I love this program here. It basically sits on top of GitHub and allows you to do project management, agile project management within GitHub. It's free for open source products. If you have private repos, I don't know how they make money, but it's great. Let me just jump back to GitHub real quick and show you what I can do with it. I was signing up for Pagely today, actually. So you see these additional tabs here and this little drop down here? That's not native to, I'm on the internet, right? Yeah. Okay, so if I click boards here, I can see all the repositories with, come on internet. There we go. See, here's all the issues that we're working on right now. In progress, our entire team, all the repositories. I can change this to just give if I wanted to. So show one. So let's see. Yep, now it's just give, and then I can say, okay, what am I working on only? It looks like I'm not working on much, but if I'm planning on, here's my to-do list right here. So it's like Trello, basically. The topmost stuff is what I should work on most. So if I check, let's see what this guy's working on. He's only got 2 issues in this repo, but okay, maybe he's got more going on. Oh, he does. So he's kind of loaded up. So this is kind of how I make sure my guys are tasked up and to see what they're working on. It'll also do smart labeling for you. So when there's a PR that's submitted, it'll move it over to the review and QA section. And then I can also create my own, I guess these are called like swim lanes or something. Let's see what they're called. Add a pipeline. We have a big release coming out, and there's a couple things waiting for that merge to happen in that release. So I can just plunk different issues in there, and when that merge happens, I can move those over. As well, there's some cool reports that happen. Let's see, velocity. Certain, well, I don't play around with the reports too much. But basically, all you have to do is go to zenhub.com and then install a little browser extension, and you get these additional tabs on there. It's pretty neat, and I encourage you to check it out. Another one is I get a lot of Slack notifications. Sorry, not Slack. GitHub notifications, and the GitHub notifier in GitHub it's all right. It's not the best, but what this app is it's called Hawkeye, and it basically looks almost exactly like Slack, but it's all your GitHub notifications through all your repositories. So you can check it out, and you can mark them as viewed, and you can easily jump into between them and stay updated with what's going on there. This is another one. If you don't want like an app that's like Slack, you'd rather see like native notifications in your pop-up bar on a Mac. I don't know if this is on PC, but you can also get an app for it. And both of these are open source and they're free. This one's called gitify.io, and it's like a menu bar in mobile GitHub notifications. It's kind of a neat little tool. And then finally, I always refer to Cheat Sheet, which is a really popular one that I refer people to. And it's just called GitHub Cheat Sheet. And it's really thorough and talks about a lot of cool stuff that I didn't know. And it starts with a GitHub section, but then it also goes into general Git as well. And if you just Google GitHub Cheat Sheet, it'll come right up. It's one of the first ones. And there's a couple other good ones too. So my final takeaway is that GitHub is constantly optimizing and getting better every day. You know, a year ago you couldn't go to a milestone board and then drag and drop issues on that milestone. They made that update. Now you can. I just noticed something cool too, that like if you upload a PNG file and then upload a JPEG with the same file name, you can compare them and swipe back and forth and see the quality differences between the two. You can also update, like if you're working with geodata, you can upload that geodata on a map and you can actually see the difference as well. Just read through that GitHub cheat sheet and you'll be like, whoa, I didn't know it did that. So it's kind of neat what it can do. I mean, I don't ever think I'll work with some of this stuff, but it's good to know it's there in case I do. And then finally, treat every day like a school day and never stop learning, whether it's GitHub, or some of the other development workflows we're going to hear today from our other speakers, which I'm really looking forward to. So with that, that's all I got, and thank you for listening to me. Any questions to finish it out?
So, with all the updates and changes that are happening, how do you get notified of new shortcuts?
So the GitHub blog is really good. They announce stuff like, that's what I linked to when they came out with the issue templates. And they're like, I think they started off with like, hey, you guys wanted this, so we created it, so here it is, and here's how it works. And that's the first one I linked to is that announcement post. And then from there, they'll come out with additional documentation. There's probably tons of different articles. And then a lot of times people will jump on and creating their own like walkthrough storyboard things like we just saw. Create your own adventure stories to get to the end. And but yeah, really just following them on Twitter and stuff too. I will say there's been minor downtime this year, but it's been very minor. Like I've been down for maybe like 15 minutes, maybe an hour max. I think it got like DDoSed in like January or something. Does anybody remember that? And people were like freaking out. I think that was like half a day max. But other than that, that's the only downside I could see. Oh, and then they had that big pricing scheme change, which like the internet threw up in arms. But they still haven't, like, we pay for private repositories. We pay $100 a month for, I think, up to 50 private repositories. And while we've hit that mark, I've just been looking at our less popular repositories and just making them public. And being like, no, you'd have to be smart to find this and then install it. So I'm just gonna. And our sales haven't gone down. And the next jump up, like it is, I think we're on the legacy pricing. So if you're running a big team, it might be difficult. But with open source as well, we get so much stuff for free. Like if you want Travis CI integration for continual testing, and all these like ZenHub, for instance, I haven't paid for that at all, but some really great tools for free. Anything else, guys? What do you mean? Free? Oh, like Bitbucket? Right. Yeah, I think they're going the opposite direction. Like less free. But more goodness. Cool. Yeah, me too. I mean, I really haven't used Bitbucket too much. And when somebody's like, I'm like, where do you host your code? I'm like looking to contribute. Oh, Bitbucket. I'm like, see ya. Just because I'm lazy. I have an account. I use SourceTree sometimes too, but I've been using the PHP Storm built-in version control system. Saves a lot of time. You don't have to go between. But hopefully somebody will touch on that later. Anyways, who's up next on our schedule? Josh, my man. Thank you. HDMI?
Yeah.
Cool. And then just plug this bad boy.
Okay.
How's it going, Jeff?
Everything looks great.
Sweet.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
All right. Hopefully that works. Okay. Sorry, guys. Let me just figure out how to do my notes here.
Dude, you're on the internet, bro.
Hello, internet. I think it's awesome that Devin has interwebs as his like Twitter hashtag.
It's not interwebs.
It's
though.
interwebs,
Yeah, I couldn't get
which
the
is
joke.
better, I think, in my opinion.
Kevin Hoffman is watching you.
Hello, Kevin. Okay. Open display preferences, maybe.
Kevin Hoffman's always watching. He is. I don't think that guy sleeps. I don't think so either.
There we go. Let's see what. That's what I wanted. Okay.
He says yo.
Yo. What's up? All right, everyone. Yeah, exactly. Well, hello again, everyone. My name is Josh Cummings. I'm really glad to be here again at AWP. And if you want to holler at me on Twitter, it's jcummingsdesign. And I'm actually going to be showing some code tonight. So if you want to look at that code later and kind of remember what we talked about, my GitHub name is Josh Cummings Design, and it's just AWP Test, I think, is the name of the project, or demo, just so you can actually refer to that later if you need to. So tonight the reason we're here is we're talking about optimization. We're talking about efficiency, and so what I thought was really interesting is that the human brain actually wants to go towards efficiency always. And so what you're looking at here is a neuron, right? And in your brain, there's this thing called an axon, and those are like the little pathways that connect your brain signals together. And myelin is the little coating that surrounds the axon. And so the interesting thing about this when we're talking about efficiency is that the more myelin coating an axon has, the more efficient that signal to your brain is. So if you're doing a task over and over again, that myelin actually builds up on your axon and helps you do things more efficiently. So I don't know if anyone's seen this before, Um, but you have a sink full of dishes. Maybe you're in college or something, or you just are super busy and your dishes pile up. And so it only takes so many times of like scrubbing those dishes to get all that like grease and stuff off before you realize, hey, maybe like your brain starts going, hey, maybe it's easier if I just wash one dish at a time and put it back. That way I'm not spending hours scrubbing grease off of these dishes. And so maybe we live with roommates or we have family staying with us. So maybe it's time to upgrade to a dishwasher, right? And that dishwasher might take some time to install. You might have to hire someone professionally to do that. You might have to spend a weekend doing it yourself or a day if you're really good at it. And so I'm going to keep coming back to this idea of efficiency. And when we talk about efficient code, we're going to be talking about the dishwasher, things that take time up front to install or to get going, but will help you dramatically as you work on WordPress projects. So I want to talk about the key components of workflow. And this is going to be a quick talk, so I'm not going to get super in-depth into all of this, but we'll look at some helpful tools that exist to help us speed up our workflow. We'll look at a quick example implementation. That's the code that's up in GitHub. And then we'll wrap up with some questions and just answering some specific questions you might have. So the key components of an efficient workflow. So when you're starting to get frustrated in your WordPress development and you're thinking, man, there's got to be a better way to do this, that is a great time to start planning a different way of doing things, or planning maybe another iteration of your build system, or planning on trying to tackle some of these problems you're having with your workflow. After you plan, you want to implement that solution and iterate on it. It may not be perfect the first time, but we're all developers and we understand that iteration is key, especially in any like open source projects, plugins, themes, etc. And then you want to activate. You don't want to keep working on the build system so much that you don't actually get any work done, because I think we've all been there where we get excited about, you know, our IDEs and our like continuous integration and all of this, and then we're like, oh crap, I didn't actually write any code that I needed to today. So we want to activate on that plan and plan for time to come back and continue iterating. So what does a plan look like? Well, it's going to be different for everyone. You really want to get creative and think about the problems you have specifically in your workflow and set some goals to address those problems. But some of the main problems that I know I've experienced is finding what you're looking for. So this really ties into what Devin was talking about, and just knowing GitHub better and knowing your tooling better to be able to find things, especially if you have multiple repos and you're working on a larger project. Or can you just find the code in your own code base? Is it organized in a way where you know exactly where your controllers are, or you know exactly where your views are, any patterns that you might have to help you organize your code? You might want to think, what do you do multiple times in your project that frustrate you? If you're doing one thing, maybe it takes just a minute, but you're doing it like 6 times a day, and you're doing that 5 days a week, and you extrapolate that out over the year, like how much time are you spending on things that could potentially be automated? What does support look like? So are you doing any sort of testing that could potentially minimize support issues down the line? And then how are you getting your code to the server? Or is there anything you're doing manually that could potentially be automated and save you time? So some tools that we can use for this. I'm going to just generalize these, but you want a really good text editor IDE. I'm sure most of us have our favorites. I know PHP Storm is amazing, and it's packed with features. Our team really likes Visual Studio Code. There's a lot of different text editors and IDEs out there that have robust features. I have to say, I think PHP Storm is probably one of the best for WordPress development specifically. But again, there's others out there, so do some research around that specifically for what your needs are. Environment. So you're going to need a LAMP stack to run WordPress. So where is that coming from? Well, there's a lot of options. I would say that some of the best are Docker, VVV, or desktop server. So just quickly on that, if you're less inclined to use the command line, I would definitely recommend desktop server. If you really like the command line, or you kind of know enough about the command line, maybe check out VVV. Docker does require a little bit more knowledge of the command line, but it's steadily improving and is actually one of my favorite environments to run my code on. You'll want a task runner like Gulp or the like, or Grunt, or any of these sorts of task runners to do a lot of these like compiling of your code. And this is actually way more common now than it used to be. I think pretty much. Is there anyone not using a task runner like Gulp or Grunt? Yeah, I mean, this is definitely pretty common, but is important. Testing suite. So again, talking about minimizing support issues, you want something running like PHP unit to do unit testing. You might want to incorporate, depending on what you're building, some acceptance testing, integration testing. And lastly, you'll most likely want a build server, something like Travis CI or Circle CI to test your code and find bugs for you before you actually deploy it live. So I'm going to show you some code quickly, and again, all this is on GitHub, but I just want to show you some of the things that I use that are super helpful for me, which are, I use Visual Studio Code. We run WordPress inside of Docker. We use Gulp, but we also use Make, which I'm going to talk about like really quickly, and I'm a huge Bash shell scripting nerd, so I really like Make, and I think it can do a lot of really powerful things. I'll just show you a couple things that I use. And then we use PHP unit and Mocha. So we use PHP unit for PHP, obviously, our unit tests, and Mocha for our JavaScript unit tests. And then we run everything through Circle CI. So let's look at some code. Yeah, absolutely. No, I got this. Bada bing. OK, there we go. So I'm just going to fire up our environment and show you an example of what this would look like. So if you are interested in Docker, if you go to YouTube, I have a video called Docker plus WordPress that talks about how to use Docker specifically. I'm also going to mirror my screen here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm not going to go super deep into any of these topics, but I would highly recommend checking out Docker. It saves our team a tremendous amount of time, and it allows us to work with more developers on different platforms. So if you look at our project, and I'll probably have to blow this up here, you'll see a make file. And so you might be thinking, well, Josh, isn't make for like C++ applications? Well, yeah, you can use it for that, but it's really powerful just for shell scripting in general. And if you've never used make, it's basically just you feed it a script, and then it gives you sort of like a gulp like functionality where you can type make install, and it'll do whatever shell script you want it to do. So what we've done is we've kind of like abstracted all of our Docker commands into make. So to spin up my environment, all I have to do is say make start. And you'll see that it creates a couple of Docker containers for me. And that's all I have to do to start up this environment. And it can be different. It could be a different stack altogether, and it all works the same way. Or we could put different dependencies into the server environment that we need. You can also do things like, oh, I can actually put like my SSH, if it's a private repo, I can put like my SSH, the IP address and username and run like make SSH staging. And then I don't have to like store all my keys and stuff. It just handles all that for me. So this is, and you can get really creative with this and make all kinds of scripts that you can sort of customize and run for what you need. Cool. So what's happening here is Docker, basically this www directory is everything inside of Docker. So that's where we work. That's like our main present working directory. So this is where all our code is. Another thing I like about Docker is all of the like WordPress core code is inside of Docker, so it doesn't like clutter up everything in your window. Some people might not like that. I personally really like that. So you'll see it's really easy to like, here's my WP content, here's our plugin, here's our theme. We're ready to start working. Cool. So the next thing I want to talk about that's really key to optimizing your workflow is WP CLI. It is amazing. It saves you so much time. And just to illustrate that, for anyone that hasn't used WP CLI, we're just going to install, well, we're not actually going to install, but we could run something like WP plugin install WordPress SEO, and then that installs Yoast for us. Or we can feed it a zip file of where the plugin is, and it installs that too. So what I'm saying here is that you could actually write a short little script that's like, here's all my starting plugins and themes that I need, and store those wherever you want in a zip file or get them directly from the repo. If you're using desktop server, they have a blueprint feature that's really awesome that lets you like store all of your starter plugins and themes in the blueprint and then use that. And then variable VVV is a great tool for VVV users that also let you create blueprints for starting with all your starter plugins and themes that you use every single time. And it completely eliminates the need to keep installing those things manually or copying folders from A to B. I'm going to show you just a couple more things. So gulp, we start everything from a config.js. Thanks, Esteban. Esteban's a huge contributor on our team. Like a lot of this JavaScript stuff, he's done an amazing job with. But it's really great to have this config for your gulp file so that not everything's in one file. And if you need to like change the directory name, you just change it in the config and then you run gulp and it still compiles everything to the right place. So you're decoupling that from your like main gulp file.js. We are using ES6, so all of our we have like all of our tasks for compiling using Babel, and we have Sash for our style sheets. All those are broken out into separate scripts. And then all our main gulp file.js is doing is requiring all of those in and running our watchers for our different file types. And so when we save a JavaScript file, it's going to compile that JavaScript using Webpack, and it's going to refresh the page using Browser Sync. Browser Sync is a really awesome live reloading tool that I would highly recommend. And all that is done here in the gulp file. And then lastly, we have project organization and testing. So in terms of organization, our team's using the MVC pattern. So when you open our plugin, it's really easy to see, like, here's the controllers, here are the models. Just simple things like that, like splitting up logic from presentation is really helpful. And then our theme simply renders the view. We are using Timber. I don't know if anyone's used Timber before, but it's twig templating for WordPress. So like our actual views look like this. which is really nice, really dry. Our use case is unique because we're building client websites really quickly that aren't, they're not going to be like open source, like themes and plugins for the repository. They're going to be tailored to a specific client. So we have a little bit of flexibility in what we can do in our system. But if you haven't checked out Timber, I would recommend it. It's pretty awesome. And then lastly, our unit tests. I would highly recommend for efficiency on the back end, again, referring to that analogy of the dishwasher, unit testing and test-driven development will help you dramatically not only reason and think about your code, but it'll cause so many less problems going forward. And if there is a problem, you can catch it because you actually have something to test. Pippin Williamson has an amazing tutorial on unit testing for WordPress. If you're not doing unit testing, check that out. It's really, really helpful what he's done in that tutorial. All right. So just wrapping up here, this is our solution. This is what our team came up with. You want to find a solution that works for you, whether it's using desktop server or using VVV or using Grunt instead of Gulp. You want to find the solution that allows you and your team to work most effectively, and you want to refine that solution and improve that solution over time. That being said, if you're like me and you're on a small team, or maybe you freelance, or maybe you have other business needs, I know that these types of things can be a lot of work up front. They are worth it, and they do help you speed up your development. Just make sure not to be too attached to tooling, because I know I fall into the trap sometimes of optimizing so much that I forget that there's a project deadline, right? So just activate on your solution and iterate, but don't worry if it's not perfect every time. And that's it. I can take any questions if you have them. Yeah.
Just a quick question. What theme do you recommend for local business?
Like a WordPress.
Or WordPress?
So like a theme from the repository that I like.
Anywhere online. Like I'm a plumber, right? So
Yeah.
What would I use? Like one with maps. What would you recommend?
I'm going to be honest and probably defer that question to Scott or one of the other awesome developers here, or any of us really. Or I can. Yeah, I'm sure. And we can talk after too. So what we do is we build custom themes for clients that are completely from scratch. So we don't really use a lot of third-party code. Like we don't use any like themes from the repository. We have like a kind of a different use case than a lot of people that use themes and plugins and stuff. So yeah, I wish I knew. What was that one?
What's it? What is it?
Salient.
S-A-L-I-E-N-T.
Cool. Salient. Awesome. Yeah.
So you mentioned that, sometimes you get so stuck in an optimization that you forget about the deadline.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have a hard time with is deciding what to tackle and what's worth the effort and time, because, you can spend, there's a great XKCD comic about like the amount of time spent, optimizing efficiency, and it's about the same as what it would have taken to just do it the way you normally do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering like what your team or your decision-making process is like for deciding to tackle something to make something more efficient.
Yes, that is an awesome question. So for us, it really comes down to just time. Like how much time will it take? Because there are certain blockers in your workflow that will be very clear. And if every project you start, you're going to have to live with that code to some extent for the lifetime of that project. Like, I don't know if you've ever ggone back to like an old code base and you're like, man, what was I thinking? Like, So it's best to do it before, like in between projects, like right before it starts, and it's best to quantify the time frame and to say, okay, we're gonna spend like 3 days or 1 day even, like tackling these 3 blockers before we start the next project. So that it's not an easy thing to tackle, but that's how we approach it. Yeah, Devin.
To kind of go off that question is like, what kind of documentation you do for onboarding new developers on your team to learn that, and then how much time does that take? And then what about offloading the project if the client for some reason wants to go off yours and they want to have code that's portable for another development team?
Yes, also really good question. So we, like, our team has documented everything we possibly can.
Sorry, Dev.
Yeah, sorry, Devin. We use Bitbucket for the private repos.
Get it.
We don't have any public repos.
You're not going to be onboarded anytime soon.
Yeah. So no, I mean, so documentation is super critical. We have this wiki. We're talking about doing like video tutorials too, and eventually open sourcing a lot of this stuff just to, like, once it works for more than just us, we want to open source it and have more contributors. But in terms of portability, that's the limit. That's the biggest limitation. Is like if we know the client's gonna want to take this site and install a bunch of plugins and install like if they change the theme, like it's not gonna work.
How does this work? Oh, this way. Of course. No? Ah. Oops.
Doing great.
I'm doing great so far.
Super into it.
Hold on. It's going to get better. Exactly. I was supposed to say that, not you. All right. We're going to talk about optimizing business. And the title of the presentation is Business, 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 the business of being a WordPress dev. And I'll kind of explore how to be a freelancer and how that relates to being a business and how the vice versa in that. So first off, who is this guy? My name's Scott Stewart. My website is carlylestewart.com. My Twitter is Carlisle Stewart. You can find me on GitHub at Aristic. I own Carlisle Stewart, a one-man dev shop, but I'm venturing into the agency space, trying to figure that out. So why business? It's an important question. Why actually go into business? Why can't I just freelance all the time and not worry about anything and get paid tons of money, right? It's true you can freelance the rest of your life, but I will show you the benefits and cons of going into business as a WordPress dev. And if you have any questions, just ask them at any time. Don't be afraid to raise your hand and interrupt me. Even if you have comments, if you are a WordPress dev as a freelancer and you want to interrupt me, raise your hand and add anything at any time. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So you want to be a freelance dev instead of your awful 9-to-5. You live near a beach, right? Maybe some of the small work and then go to the beach. The beach sounds nice right now. Hashtag freelance life. The reality, you work more than 9-to-5 to start because you'll take any bone that's thrown your way. The beach is available, but if you're not working, you're not making money. Every time you're on freelance and Twitter, you're losing money. Hashtag freelance life. More nitty-gritty, developing your business. What are you selling? Obviously, you're selling your services, but you're selling more than that. You're selling yourself and your business to everyone that you meet. You're selling a conversation. You're selling like nobody's business because your life depends on it as a freelancer. It's important to realize early on, which I hope you have done already, that your freelance life and your business life is your business life and vice versa. If you're introducing yourself as a freelancer, you're already doing something wrong. Introducing yourself as Scott Stewart, owner of Up Agency, which is the agency I'm trying to develop. Hand a business card and start a conversation. Oops. Pitfalls I've learned along the way. The tax man giveth and the tax man taketh away. Have a damn good website. Be really good, really good and organized. The tax man. My advice is to hire a CPA. This has seriously been the best thing that I've done. It's not that expensive, and it will save your butt 100% of the time. Doing your own tax is a pain. You're probably doing it wrong. And pay quarterly. Here are the dates if you've forgotten them. The 4th, the 4/18, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. I have it on my bulletin next to my desk. Pay online and pay 25% of what you made this quarter. Here's the link directly to pay directly. Pay. What?
You're an IRS plant, are you?
No, I'm not a plant. I don't work for the IRS. I just freelance and know that you should pay quarterly. Your website. Yeah. Your website is better than your business card. The curse of a freelancer is that you never finish your website. Get it done. It's vital. It's not, if not the most important part. Mobile responsive so you can show everyone your stuff on the fly, right there. Just show them your stuff right there. Organization. I've learned early on it's good to be incredibly organized. It's like this. You can be scattered in your personal life, but if you do that to a client, you've already lost the client and his or her referrals. That means respond to emails quickly. Zero box your inbox. No unread emails, please. That also means use some system that works for you to organize your time and tasks. I use Google Calendar for meetings and Asana for tasks. It really works for me, but there are better systems, I know. So use the ones that work for you. Spend less time on time suckers like Facebook and Twitter unless you're posting something relevant. I still struggle with this one, so I'm going to work on it too, okay? Get good at answering phones. You're putting your business card and your business out there, so get good at blocking numbers in your phone that are spam numbers. You may be thinking now, what about the 4-hour work week? How can I work less and get more money? I hate to break it to you, that means outsourcing all your work. I hate outsourcing. Do the work. You are in charge of the quality of your work. And then local SEO. Here are some resources in which I've learned to do some local SEO. Lynda.com was a good one when I was learning everything WordPress back in the day. Moz local SEO is good. And this one, the search engine land, local SEO, local business, it's the first one that comes up if you search local SEO in your Google machine. It's the first one that comes up. So just search for it if you want to learn about local SEO. It helps a lot. And that's basically it. If you didn't ask any questions, which no one did, please ask them now. Yeah.
What do you use them for billing?
For billing, I use PayPal Invoice.
Like
Yeah.
to manage your books too, or?
Oh, to manage my books? FreshBooks. Yeah. Which I could use for invoicing too, but I got a deal through PayPal for less percentage. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Plugins in general? Oh, Yoast SEO, Yoast plugin. You shouldn't do two of them. They would contradict with each other because they'd give two meta descriptions on the same page. So just use the one, and I'd recommend Yoast.
Any others for SEO purposes?
No, just that one. Yeah.
How do
Devin.
you get your clients for your business?
So far, it's been referrals and just hanging out at AWP meetings and having good times with people, and going to conferences and stuff like that, like WordCamp, LA soon, that stuff. Yeah.
Any marketing budget?
I am my own marketer, so I don't have any budget. My tab, yeah. Why, you want to be my marketer?
I charge a lot.
Yes, I'm sure you do. Cool. Yeah.
What team were you saying for local business?
Salient. S-A-L-I-E-N-T. S-A-L-I-E-N-T. Salient. It's a weird word. It's, yeah, salient.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Scott?
Good to go?
Various
Awesome.
says
Thanks,
hi.
Scott.
Who?
Various.
Various says hi. Hey, Various. The OC crew representing.
Thank you, sir. I think he's Inland Empire, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, guys, so we're just going to take like a 2-minute break, and Jim's going to come up. He's going to share. We're entering the lightning round, so does anybody have anything else they'd like to share? All right. And then, sir, you want to? Yeah? I mean, no pressure. Okay. It doesn't have to be anything formal like slides or anything. It could be something cool you're working on. It has to be WordPress related. Should be somewhat advanced, but there's no strict rules or anything. AJ, anything? You're always working on something cool, man. All right. Well, then that breaks the first rule. Cool. So we got Jim and William coming up. And then we'll just, I think that'll probably run us around to 8:20-ish. And then we might all go out afterwards somewhere around here. If not, then we'll just wrap up around 8:30. Sound good? Cool. Put this guy on.
Have you had any difficulties with the mirroring? The HDMI cable's not.
There's a lightning cable too. I think it might work.
I think it's this one right here. Oh, this is the HDMI one.
Well, maybe that's it, because this one, that's not.
Oh,
it.
yeah, that one.
Well,
Replace that.
there you go. I was wondering. It didn't work because it wasn't connected. What a concept. Because I could have spent 10 minutes on that.
Okay, guys, like 1 minute, and we're going to get started again.
And I watch other people stream, and it seems so easy.
Not that easy.
It's going pretty good. I wouldn't know what to do, man. It's cool that you're doing. I don't even know what to do, bro.
I'm like, hey, you want to stream? Stream.
Yeah, so it's on right now. There's Jim. See, wait, Jim. You weren't on.
All right, you guys.
It's like an intermission screen.
All right, guys, we're gonna get started again here. Can I make just a quick announcement?
Go ahead.
Where was the little,
You gotta remember to bring your power cable.
Say what?
that was intermission, where was the little, let's go out to the lobby?
I gave like 5 minutes. That was like 5 minutes.
Let's go out to
You need more time?
Oh, I was supposed to do that?
I just want to point out some news that dropped while we're meeting today. Matt Mullenweg published on Twitter about React and WordPress. And I don't know who's following on Twitter right now, but basically they're going to rewrite Gutenberg without React. So I don't know, a few weeks ago Facebook announced that they were digging in on their patent clause to React license, and it was kind of Apache.org said they weren't going to use the project. It's not allowed in any of their projects. They're pressing forward with building Gutenberg, and we know Calypso is built in it as well. So go follow Matt on Twitter, or go to his blog ma.tt and read the latest post. Some newsworthy stuff there. And with that, Jim, take it away.
Hello there. My name's Jim Walker with hackrepair.com. If you ever have any of those nagging security questions that come up, definitely give me a call. I like talking to people on the phone. So I'm one of those security geeks who actually like to talk to you. So give me a yell and I'll take care of you. Today we're going to move into the lightning part of the presentation. I'm going to talk mainly about community blogging, and this is only going to be very short, maybe 5 minutes. Much of this is going to talk about user roles. Do any of you have blogs or WordPress websites that have guest writers? Do we have any guest writers? Well, one of the biggest issues that people run into with the setting up of a website, like a church website or a nonprofit, which is what I work with, is the concept of having guest writers, but also trying to keep your website secure. So if you were to have a guest writer sign up for your website and they want to write about some topic, and that's all wonderful. You set up a user for them, and then you go ahead and set them up as an author, which I prefer. You can set up some other options as well, but I like to use author. When you give them the author role, that gives them the ability to only really edit their articles, right? It's their articles, they're the author. They can't edit the other articles, but they can publish. All right. So if that doesn't make sense to you, or why that's an important thing for me to talk about, is that when you give someone the ability to write on your website, you're giving them the ability to write on your website. They can add articles. They can have their password stolen because they're at the local coffee shop with a non-secured connection, and some hacker can come in and publish 1 million articles about some adult enhancement drug, right? So you want to reduce the ability for your guest writers to publish, right? Because if you give everybody the ability to publish, then you're going to go on vacation for a couple of weeks and come back and they're going to write an article that maybe your church website doesn't appreciate. Maybe it's about some political thing that doesn't work with the concept of your website. So what I'm going to talk about real quick is how I handled this sort of dilemma. And what happened was that a client came to me and said, I want to have, on my particular church site, I want to be able to have some guest writers who are going to be doing photography and talking about events and those sorts of social activities. And then I said, well, that's a great thing, but do you know these people? Well, no. I mean, photographer is a barber guy that I know. I met him once. I don't know who he is. Well, first thing I said was, well, don't let him write for you if you don't know who he is, because he can write anything he wants unless you take additional steps. So the long and short of it is that I'm going to talk to you about how to do that. And I'm going to do it very quickly. It's going to be very easy. I wrote an article on this. It's actually posted in the Meetup group, so in the Meetup list of presentations, I put my link in there, so if you'd like to read this later, you can. So what I just kind of alluded to is that you can give a person the role of author, which is a wonderful thing, and it's wonderful to have someone else write for you. And a couple of you folks here do that. You have people write on your blogs and stuff, and it takes away from your chores. It lets you do other more salesy things while other people are writing good quality content. But you always want to be able to review that content before you publish it. So that's the downside of just giving somebody the author role. You give them the author role, and what happens? They go crazy. They write stuff, they click the publish button on the weekend, and it's just bad writing. And you come in on a Monday and you wish they hadn't done it. But you gave them the ability to publish. So what I'm going to talk about is how to set up finer control of that editorial process. So what I've done here is I've given you a few options, and I'm just going to be very lowbrow. I'm not going to talk about user role, editor, or anything like that. We're going to use off-the-shelf plugins to do this. So a few that I would just recommend you take a look at is Edit Flow, User Access Manager, and Capability Manager Enhanced. I'm not going to get into the talk about that because I'm going to go right into what I did and how you can do it. In particular, this particular client, they had this church website and they needed to be able to limit the role of their author so that they could not publish. They didn't want the person to be able to write about the most recent Sunday event and then also publish it before the manager of the website had a chance to look at it. So what I recommended he do is we went to a plugin and chose Capabilities Manager Enhanced. And I'm just going to quickly show you how it works because it's crazy easy. And it'll give you the ability to take your nonprofit, get them to get those authors that you need to build up the content on your website, but do it in a safe way. And how we did this, and I'm just going to show you a real example of it, is I set up, on my site, I set up two authors. Emma Ryder is an author, and then of course I'm the administrator. Now what's interesting is that Emma Ryder can edit and can do things like set categories and do a number of other things. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on her article real quick. And there's nothing special to it. It's just an article. And I can do things as an author. I'm logged in as her at the moment. As an author, I can do things like update. I can do all of that in there, which is wonderful. I can go look at the other posts, but I can't edit the administrator posts or other author posts, and that's all wonderful, right? Now, in this is a totally different setup. This is where I'm logged in as the administrator. Now, as the administrator, I can obviously do anything. I can edit the articles anytime I want. Now, I'm going to jump over to my plugins. Currently, I have the Capability Manager Enhanced disabled. So I'm going to run back to what you would experience if you took no action. You just gave an author the ability to write. Okay, so this is Emma. I'm Emma Ryder again. I have the Emma Ryder account on. So I click on Add New Posts. So this is this is a demonstration. Now right now it has, I think I already have the plugin enabled. So I'm not going to talk about that. But normally what happens is when I go to add a new post, where it says submit for review, it actually says publish. So once I have the plugin set up, I think there's some caching here, so you can't see the way it works. But with the Capability Manager Enhanced plugin set up, then when I actually set the capabilities for Emma, it'll look a lot like this. So with the actual plugin in place, it gives me the ability to set up the ability for that person to edit posts, publish posts, and it gives me the ability to restrict access. So what I do is I go over here and I'm going to make sure that all of my authors, I'm going to load the settings for my authors. Okay, so the way I have it set up on this website is that all of my authors have the ability to edit posts, and also they can edit their published post. But you see that they can't publish. So in theory, if I'm over here, if I'm the actual Emma Ryder, and I go to post, try this again. Okay, so I can update, and then as you saw before, is when I actually go to add a post, I can add a post, but with that particular setup of that I showed you before, where I'm only limiting the ability for them to post and edit and publish, or edit, published, and also edit. They can't actually publish. So the bottom line here is that with this particular plugin that I'm presenting here, that you can use it to limit the ability for your person to post, which is a wonderful thing because it gives you the ability to limit their ability to publish, and then you'll actually, when they click the review, you'll actually get a notice, and then you can edit it and publish it. So do you see the value of that, having the ability to reduce their publishing ability? And it's very simple to do, and you can do it with this very easy to use plugin, which is the Capability Manager Enhanced. Let's see if I had anything else in here that was helpful. As you can see from this, that's what it looks like once it's set as they submit for review. Normally they would be and actually be able to publish it. So that pretty much summarizes the whole concept of just the ability to limit the person, an author, the ability role, or limit the author's ability using the role editor to actually prevent them from publishing wildly whenever they want. So does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, does it allow you to remove buttons from the left side of the WordPress, or is it just within the...
No, this particular talk is focused specifically on reducing the user role of the user, and that's a different discussion. We are talking about limiting the interface for the client. That's a totally different thing. Yes, you can do that. You can do that at the top where you actually limit. Let me show you. It's a good point. No, it's a valid point. Let me bring it up. See if I'm logged in. In your screen options, you can do some, like you can reduce some things within the post. But I think you're referring to the very left column where you allow them to do things like get into testimonials and slides. So that's a different. There's a plugin for that. We have a plugin for that as well, but I'm not going to get into that. Yes, sir.
With this plugin, are you able to limit users being able to upload things to the media ledger?
No, because not with this particular plugin, but they do. Well, let me show you something. There are some additional things that you can limit. Let me bring it back. You can other WordPress capabilities. You can do things like prevent them from doing other options. So you can do things like prevent them from installing plugins and some other things. So you can do a lot of stuff with this. I definitely recommend checking it out because you get a lot of ability to limit a user's role. Yes, sir.
You mentioned edit flow.
Yeah.
I wrote for an online paper a couple years ago where edit flow was used. It seemed to be pretty
It's very nice.
Is this very, very similar?
Edit flow is too complicated for me. I thought edit flow was more for an organization who's really trying to master the publishing concept. This is more for limiting user use, whereas edit flow does this, but does a lot of other things as well. This is really more for managing just, let's say, an author roles with some other limiting factors. But the other one does allow you to, I seem to recall it said you were allowed to set some tasks, and there were some miscellaneous things you could do to make the editorial process kind of go through a flow process, which is why it's called edit flow. Yeah. The author, once you limit the author's role, they cannot publish, but they can edit. Yes. Correct. So if you leave that on, then the person, since you've already approved that review, the person can go back in and make minor changes, and they can change the whole thing if they wanted to. Again, you can turn that off. So they can edit it. They can't. Well, after they do it, they can edit it until you publish it. So this little box up here, which is the edit published, if I uncheck that, they won't be able to edit it after I publish it. Yeah, I mean, but your question is basically you have a person, you've already published the article, the person says, I want to make changes to it. You can just lift that publishing, let them work on it, and then republish it later. I know what you're talking about. Is there a way in which they can request it, etc.? I think that... Right. 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 The way that I've used this is that it doesn't, once you have the ability to edit it, and then once you publish it, I could set it back to draft format, and they would have the ability to edit it. So the other plugins that I mentioned earlier, the other plugins do allow you to do some more in-depth things. Yeah. 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 Well, like I said, that's why I gave you 3. I gave you 3 options so you can kind of play with them. If you find that this one's too limited, because this was the easiest to use. This is one I could give to administrator of a website and say, just go crazy, and they could get their stories, review them, publish them, done, move on to the next. There was one other person? Yeah, Devin.
Yeah. Is this a free plugin?
Yep, yeah, it's a free plugin.
Cool. And is EditFlow a plugin? I've never heard of that one.
EditFlow is a plugin.
Is it a free one?
It's a free one. But they do have other options on it. Let me bring it up.
It's like a premium product?
Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so like I said, you can do with this particular one, which is the remove dashboard access. Actually, how did I get to that? It's interesting. Okay, so when you talked about the removing it, because I was thinking along the same lines in your earlier concept of how am I going to remove those left items. Well, I just showed that's how you do it. You can remove dashboard access and some other things, because I was trying to do that. I accidentally linked it wrong. Yeah, exactly. I got to go back and fix my article. User access is also very, very in-depth and detailed. I don't believe it has a paid option, but it's quite involved. Let me go back to the original one, which is EditFlow. Since I've obviously was working on a couple things when I wrote this, let's go ahead and get the EditFlow plugin. EditFlow, like I said, is crazy, and you can really do some crazy stuff with it, and it definitely has a premium opportunity. You can get in there and do scheduling of things.
It looks kind of like co-schedule.
Yeah, in progress, shows you everything, like he mentioned. Simon mentioned earlier that it really is detailed. If you really want to get into the world of publishing and managing articles, then I would definitely take a look at that EditFlow. Any other questions? All right, so that ends my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. You want to come up?
Awesome. HDMI. I have a what is it? What do you check there?
Yeah, one of those.
Lightning cable.
That's not lightning. Thunderbolt?
I think he has one of those.
Yeah.
Not sure what he did with it though.
Oh, Jay, I have one, Josh. This is VGA, right?
That might work.
Yeah, all right.
Might get lucky with it.
What is this?
That one won't work.
Let's see here. That fits.
Whether it turns on now.
Let's see.
Come on, come on. Oh, I'm doing something.
Is it? There we go.
Boom. Here.
Put this on. Boom.
What are you presenting on?
I'm showing off some Greensock animation stuff.
Cool.
Oh, that stuff I showed you at the bar last time. Yeah, so before I get into that, I just wanted to give you all a quick update. A couple of you, well, I don't know if anyone's here, a couple months ago I announced I was looking for a job. I got a little part-time job, so doing a little work for this guy. his little website shop is called Impression Chefs. So it's a little part-time thing. So I'm still doing my flaunt your site stuff. So if you guys need any SEO consultancy, hit me up. I can take on some work for sure. But tonight I wanted to show off this thing called Greensock. Has anyone heard of Greensock?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Why is my resolution like so insanely like crazy here?
High or low?
Do I need to do something? Like this is like crazy.
Lower
The settings.
Do this guy. Wait, which one on here?
No, like on like everything. Everything is
Oh.
like maybe just go into settings and change it. Where is some preferences? I don't know, man. This is crazy.
Might have to just roll.
Just roll with it, right? Scaled. Oh yeah, like go back to normal here. I don't know. It's not mirroring there. All right. I guess that's kind of okay.
I like higher resolution.
I do too, but I can't see anything, man. All right. Well, let's take a look here.
Go full screen.
Yeah, let me go full screen on this guy here. Oh, I see.
Will your animation have nudity in it? Because we might not be able
With boobies? No, no.
I'm getting nervous here. This is a family meetup.
Hey, look. Hey, there are birds.
Streaming now to the internet.
It could be about birds. You never know, man. There are birds called boobies. All right, so Greensock is an animation library, and what I wanted to show off here is I'm using Greensock and the REST API to modify this login screen in WordPress. So let me hit refresh again so you can see what happens. I have the Flaunt Sites logo pop up immediately, and then it fades away, and then I have a client. This is multi-site, so this would be a client's logo that takes its place. And then I have, these are all featured images that propagate and start raining down. So the featured images are being pulled in with the REST API, and then they're being animated with the Greensock using JavaScript. Same thing with the logo. So the logo comes in, then fades up, and then the client logo would come in. So this is all kind of hard-coded, like all the URLs for everything. Regarding the regarding the logos are hard-coded, and I need to kind of like get it figured out with the REST API, like how to pull in this, like how you would use like PHP, the site, for the URL. And it's not the site, is it? It's a WP site info or something. So I need to figure out how to do that with the JavaScript, and like figure out like what the current site's URL structure is, so I can use that. Right now it's kind of hard-coded based off of the redhulk.org. So that's that. Let's see here. So I've got a couple other examples where I'm using Greensock to animate stuff. So what I'm kind of doing a lot lately is logos. And so you can do some really cool things with SVGs and Greensock. So you could animate your logos, like make it look like it's being drawn in. The reason this heart beats is because when the first time I saw this logo, I was asking my client, I'm like, what is this kind of triangular thing up on the top there? He's like, it's a heart. I'm like, oh. Like, I would have never guessed that. Can we like make it look kind of hearty? Like can we make it beat or something? So one of the cool things I'm doing here is I've got it so, all right, just so you know, last year I have never touched JavaScript in my life, and now I'm like just really loving it. It's just so much fun. So what I did was I created, down on the bottom of this, yeah, there we go, it shows up. I create a session storage item, kind of like a cookie. So it when it hits the bottom, On the first load, you'll see the full animation, but on every subsequent page load, you'll see just the heartbeat. So you don't see the whole thing being drawn out every time. So I thought that was kind of clever. I had to learn about cookies and session storage and local storage and all that stuff. And then here's another one. When I'm animating logos, I look for something really subtle. I don't want like something crazy to go, like be triggered every time. So for something like this, it's just when you hover over it, the birds kind of, look like they're flying or hovering a bit. This is my personal logo for my photography site. And this one's a little busy with the dots kind of propagating like that, so I'll probably eliminate that. But it's kind of fun. You can like make it look like it's being drawn, the signature is being drawn on the page. And then, yeah, this one's kind of fun too. So on page load, the heart comes in, arrow pops through. And with the Greensock animation, it has like different easings. So you can say, you can give it a bounce, you can give it like a force ease in, a force ease out, that sort of thing. So it's a pretty incredible type of library. And this is really the code that runs it all. So I'm just selecting all the different elements here in JavaScript, and then the timeline max, that's everything from there is the Greensock. So I'm grabbing the text element here. So, and then over 1 second, I'm going to bring it from opacity, or I'm going to bring it to, right? So there's 2. So timeline, we're going to go to this part. So with the text, we're going to go over 1 second. We're going to bring it fully to opacity. And then the same with the heart. And then with the arrow, we're coming from somewhere, and we're coming to this particular location over 1 second. And this is the ease. So it's an elastic ease in, and then what is that? I think that is special parameters on the ease. And then the plus comes in. And yeah, so that's kind of it. So if you've ever wanted to play with a really simple animation stuff, this is really cool. Logos. Adds just a nice little touch to your client sites. I mean, it's best if they have them in SVGs or like AI files. You can export them out from Illustrator, and then SVG is really just code. So all of this right here is the SVG itself. They're just vectors. So all these points, all these lines and stuff, they're all vector coordinates, and that's all this code is right here. So you can fill it, you can apply styles or IDs to it, and use a CSS file to modify that system-wide. Really fun, and I'm trying to use this in WordPress applications as much as possible, like this here. So creates a really unique user experience and interactive, engaging. So that's really it. Just wanted to share. Yeah.
So what do you use to convert the vector graphic to SVG?
Well, the vector, you could just go from Illustrator, like export out, and then grab. So if you save as or export SVG, there will be in the Illustrator pop-up box, there will be a grab SVG code. Yeah, so you don't actually have to export it out to an SVG file. You just grab the code and drop it in. I use CodePen because it's really, really quick, really responsive. I could drop stuff in, do up a quick JavaScript. Everything's right there, right, in that little panel on the right. So, I could drop in my SVG, surround it in a div or something, and then come down here really quick and then work into my JavaScript and just get everything done really quickly. And then I can figure out what the workflow is to get it into the site.
Yeah, you don't go file save as. It's not there. You have to right click it and then go down.
What's that?
Right click on that.
On the image?
Illustrator.
Yeah, you can. I think you can. At the simplest level, you could just select all and copy and paste it right into a text editor. It will actually just paste right in. all that vector information, it'll just paste right in. But one of the things that I found is you do want to clean up the SVG a little bit. So there's a thing called, there's SVGO, and then there's someone that created a little GUI for it, SVG OMG.
I use that.
Yeah, SVG OMG is really nice. And what it is you can take your markup, you can paste it in here. Let me just grab some. Let me just grab. It's probably, I got a mask on this one, but let's see if it'll trip anything up. Paste markup. Yeah, okay, so there it is. So then you go through here and you can pick off the different things that you don't necessarily need. And then it'll optimize it on a certain level. So it'll remove some of the things like that Adobe inputs, or if you're using like, is it Sketch or SketchUp? Sketch? Sketch, if you use Sketch, it has its own stuff that it puts in the SVGs, and some of those you don't necessarily really want in your code for the SVG.
So like the cleanup for Word.
Yeah, kind of,
I
yeah.
also want it to get smaller too, right? Like,
Yeah.
how big is that file? Probably
5K, yeah, 5K, 5.2.
it's billboard ready. Wow.
Yeah, that's the great thing about SVG is because it's vector. I mean, it's going to look great on any Retina display, even that new iPhone with the frickin' 550 ppi display that they came out with. So it'll look great on any display. It'll look great in print if you wanted it to. Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. Yeah, thanks for letting me show it.
Awesome.
Here you are, senor.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, that concludes our final presentation for tonight. Make sure you tweet San Diego Library if you haven't. And we've got a couple minutes for final networking, but we got to be out here within like 15 minutes max. So thanks for coming, and we'll see you again next month. And thanks for all the presentations and everything. And thanks, Joe, for live streaming.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, no problem.
What strategy or techniques do you use? What do you properties do you use? Video, posts, social media, Facebook, websites.
This just shows